And now, it's The Law Show on CL 650. A comprehensive look at everything you need to know about the law. Now, here's Sterling Fox.
Well, there's a song called Last Will and Testament from Eric Clapton and J.J. Cale and friends to kick off this edition of The Law Show here on CIL 650. Good morning and welcome to the program. I'm Sterling Fox, joined in studio, well, we're talking Last Will and Testaments musically, and we will for the next hour with John Lakes and John White, partners both at Lakes White LLP, a North Vancouver law firm in the estate planning and estate litigation category. John Lakes and John White. Good morning, both of you.
Good morning.
Morning.
Tell us a little bit about Lakes White. John Lakes, the senior member of this duo. You are a UBC guy. You're a Vancouver guy who never really left the area, have
Actually,
you?
I'm really a North Shore guy.
Oh, okay. I know. And then, of course, for North Shore people, that's an important distinction.
That's right. I mean, we know all about Seymour Demonstration Forest and occasionally going over the bridge, but we try to avoid it. So
well, and tell us about Lakes White. How long has the firm been around since you graduated from law school?
Well, I graduated in '76. I wandered around, was in Prince Rupert, was downtown. I've been practicing in North Van since 1981, and 1986 I formed this firm, and we've had various other partners. And then actually, John has just been with. We've now been together for 16 years. So John joined our firm in 1999, and so we have two partners. We've got two associate lawyers and an articling student at this time, but we've been providing legal services on the North Shore for a long time.
And so. John White, you're a North Shore guy who went to law school out of province. Just had to come up for air somewhere else in part of your education.
Well, you need to get around a bit before you come back to the North Shore, as we all try and do.
Mm-hmm. And so John mentioned that you joined the firm in the late 90s. Now, tell us about the different types of work that you both do, because you do different legal assignments.
Well, we do. We call ourselves, as most law firms do, barristers and solicitors.
Right.
A solicitor is the type of lawyer who stays in the office, who will write wills or contracts or assist clients with business disputes, say. Whereas a barrister is a lawyer who will prepare for and then attend court hearings and resolve disputes between clients. In our office, I'm the barrister, and John Lakes is the solicitor.
Okay. And but you don't. Your work as the lawyer who goes to court a lot isn't exclusively restricted to the area of wills and estates and estate planning, is it?
Well, no, it's not. There are all sorts of disputes that people require legal assistance with out there that I assist people with. I do a lot of work involving business disputes between people on either ends of contracts. I do a number of personal injury cases for people injured in car accidents or in slip and fall type accidents.
Right.
I do a lot of employment law cases as well. I just finished doing one, or I didn't finish it, but I did one on Friday of last week. I was arguing an employment law situation. And there are then other sorts of cases that don't fit in any of those categories where people just require assistance, and we're there to give it.
Just a law show question to both of you. Many times you'll see John Smith, barrister and solicitor, on a newspaper ad or whatever. Does John Smith go to court and do the paperwork all himself too?
In British Columbia, you can do both.
Right.
And I occasionally go to court, but usually on uncontested matters. There are some lawyers who do both, but everything's so complex these days that it's not many people do full trials and solicitors work as well, because the volume of knowledge you have to have is over, and so generally people usually choose one or the other.
Okay. All right. And your choice to be the guy who goes to court, is that just an adrenaline thing, John White? Is that it's what you like to do and you're good at, obviously?
Well, it sure can be an adrenaline thing. If a case goes really well, that's a big adrenaline rush.
Sure.
And it's just what I've wound up doing. I don't know, thinking back, that I'd actually intended to become a barrister or a litigator, as another word people used.
Right.
When I got out of law school, I was looking for work. That's a job that came up first. I took it and quickly decided that I enjoyed doing it. But the thing I think in law school that really prepared me for litigation more than anything else was a summer job that I had after first year law school, where I couldn't find a job in the legal industry in Toronto back then.
Oh, you went to U of T, right? That's right,
That's
University
right.
of Toronto Law School.
Because I was in Toronto my first summer away from BC, and I found a job selling costume jewelry from a stand in department stores, kind of like they do at the PNE.
Okay.
So
you were that guy.
I was that guy.
Okay.
And so with this job being almost like a PNE sales guy from a stand, not selling Ginsu knives, but selling costume jewelry.
Right.
It was the greatest litigation training there is,
I'll
because
bet.
you have to persuade people
Sure.
to come to your stand, to listen to you, and to buy your product.
Right.
And I loved it.
John Lakes, I'm curious, and we've got a lot to cover in this program, but why did you choose estate law as your
well, I do
path?
more than just, I do small business and I do real estate as well. I generally think of my as middle class law.
Oh, okay.
So I'm dealing with, people who live in North Van because a lot of my clients may consider me their lawyer. I haven't spoken to them for 15 years because how often do you need a lawyer? But as part of...
But you're the go-to guy when you do that need to pick up the phone and call your lawyer.
That's right. So we try to deal with people who, just like a general practitioner in medicine, I mean, we're trying to deal with regular issues, and sometimes if we have to send them out to specialists, that's fine. But we're dealing with people who've got real problems, and real issues. I mean, some of them are not problems, but, we can deal with them when they're buying their house or incorporating their company and so forth. So it's sort of a traditional role of a solicitor in the community.
One of our regulars here on CIL 650 is a financial advisor named Fred Snyder.
Yeah.
And Fred's on every weekend, and Fred insists that every person in Metro Vancouver needs a written financial plan. John Lakes, would you extend that to saying that most people need a written estate plan, and that flows from a financial plan?
Well, yeah,
Are they one and the same?
Well, the financial plan will decide how you should hold your assets.
Okay.
So probably you need to have a will. You should need a will. You may need a power of attorney. You may need to make sure that all your assets are current as to who are the beneficiaries of various things too. So you need the legal documents to get to your plan in a way it will work.
Sure.
So a will is absolutely essential, because if you don't have a will, then the government dictates how your assets flow.
All
which is
of
not
the
how
rest
you
of that
want.
planning just goes out the window
That's right.
when you're done.
It may not be what you want.
Right. Okay. So one flows out of the other then,
That's
logically, wouldn't it?
That's right.
Okay. John White, we're going to talk a lot on this program about something called WESA. What is WESA?
Well, WESA is the Wills, Estates, and Succession Act. It's an act of our provincial legislature that came into force on March 31st of last year.
Okay.
And it completely changed many aspects, probably most aspects of the law concerning wills, concerning estates, concerning how estates are administered. It got rid of a bunch of older statutes like the Wills Act and the Wills Variation Act, and it put all of the territory governed by those statutes into one act called the Wills, Estates, and Succession Act, and because that name is so long,
right,
we just call it WESA.
Right. Okay, so it's the new British Columbia Wills and Estates law,
basically.
And this comes about around the same time as the government also changed family law in our province. So there are attempts at the government level, John Lakes, to try to update, to try and keep the law abreast of current changes.
Well, and I also think they decided to keep it all in one place, because one of the bits of confusion was that there were so many different acts that you had to look all over the place. Now, technically, everything should be within WESA.
Right, okay. Wanted to talk about something, as suggested by my guests, about something called assets passing outside of the estate. Sounds terribly complex, and yet kind of self-explanatory. Which of you wants to take on what this means and where it applies?
Well, maybe I'll start off
with John
part
Lakes.
of it. So the most common, for example, is life insurance.
Okay.
And life insurance is actually a contract between you and the insurance company, most of whom are governed in Toronto. So whether there's a dispute, there's a question under what law anyway. But the important thing with a life insurance policy is generally money passing through a life insurance policy is tax-free.
Okay.
But second of all, you should have a beneficiary named in your life insurance policy. So for example, if you have a policy, you've named your wife as a beneficiary.
Sure.
All your wife has to do is provide the death certificate and the money goes to her.
Right.
However, sometimes there's instances that the insurance is not payable. John can talk about, such if there's a circumstances where you're in conflict with a policy or so forth.
So where do the issues of contention then come up, John White?
Well, with life insurance, there are... I like to think it's wherever the insurance company thinks of one, but perhaps that's unfair to insurance companies.
Not likely, but yeah.
But for example, suicide, if somebody kills themselves, that's a fairly well-known and fairly obvious factor which leads to an exclusion in a life insurance policy.
So that if a person commits suicide, is it Canadian law or BC law that there's no money to be paid out?
Well, it's in the contracts.
Oh, is that right?
It's in the life insurance contracts themselves. But another instance is where it's unclear whether or not, or at least the insurance company thinks it's unclear whether or not the insured person has died or not. I mean, we had a case not long ago where this poor guy disappeared while scuba diving just off West Vancouver, and they never found him again. And it took a lot of persuading of the insurance company and ultimately some litigation, although we didn't take it to court, to persuade the insurance company that, in fact, this gentleman had passed away, and the life insurance money was payable. And eventually, the insurance company saw it our way and paid according to the policy.
Usually, in a case like that, and it's very interesting that you use that example. I learned to scuba dive in West Vancouver. I didn't think it was a particularly dangerous location, but in that case, my civilian, non-legal mind says that don't you have to go to court and have a judge declare the person to be deceased, and then the insurance company is compelled to pay the money?
Well, you might think so, and we did that first step, but the insurance company in this case still required some additional persuasion, even though we had that declaration from the court. And as I say, eventually they were persuaded, and everything worked out. But it took a while.
So, John Lakes, in terms of assets passing outside of the estate, back to the topic heading for a moment before we take our break, this involves anything that you haven't identified in your will, but that you have as part of your life, as you suggest, like the insurance policy or perhaps an RRSP.
Well, by the making of it falls outside the estate because it's actually a contract with a third party. But I just want to add one other thing with the life insurance too, is that, usually like suicide, there may be a 2-year clause, but sometimes there's issues because they are a contract. And if someone dies of a disease, which the insurance company thinks that person had prior to them getting a policy but didn't disclose.
The pre-existing condition thing,
too.
Right?
So people sometimes jump to conclusions that they have life insurance automatically without actually reading the rules.
Interesting. And I suppose, and the debate is just beginning in Quebec, but it's going to go right across Canada, the whole euthanasia debate.
That's right.
Because you're talking about suicide. Well, suppose now you're just a terribly ill person who, once it becomes legal, makes the choice to end your life. And that's not suicide. That's a legal step that we don't know about yet. But I'm putting you into kind of uncharted waters here, John White. But is that's going to change the law again, isn't it?
Well, it certainly has the potential. I suspect that there are insurance company lawyers right now who are tearing their hair out, wondering what to do with euthanasia or the euthanasia provisions in Quebec, and ultimately things that we're going to have to deal with here.
Sure.
So, and there may also be the issue that if you're the daughter who makes a decision to pull the plug,
Then, and you are also the beneficiary of the insurance policy.
But those are talks nobody likes to talk about. But there was an article in the paper about on the weekends about that. So.
Those subjects in the law that no one likes to talk about can be heard every Sunday morning right here on CIL 650 on The Law Show. That's why we do this program. And we're back with lots more with Lakes White, LLP, after this break.
There's more of the show still ahead. This is The Law Show on CIL 650.